it's about time that my own country recognised that our interests are best served by not being a member of this club. Most people in the UK thought we joined a free trade area, but this crisis demonstrates it is anything but that. While the UK has obeyed EU law to the letter, other countries are running a cart and horse through the rulebook. The level playing field is about as level as the decks of a Titanic after it hit the iceberg.
We talk a great deal about violence against the people. We talk a lot about democracy. We've had a homicidal baboon in Zimbabwe now for years and we don't do anything about it, do we? We don't care because there's no money and there's no oil. As so typical of this place, full of hypocrisy and humbug.
Britain's favourite newspaper, The Sun, says Tony Blair is to surrender billions of pounds of taxpayers' cash and get nothing in return. In its editorial of December the 1st, it said, "This is treachery." Treachery, Prime Minister. Not a nice word, not my word, The Sun's word. But I and millions of Sun readers agree. You are giving away a huge sum of money simply as a fig leaf for your failure. But it is not your money, it is not the government's money, it is our money, it is the taxpayers' money.
Why should British taxpayers pay for new sewers in Budapest, for a new underground system in Warsaw, when our own public services are crumbling in London? Why should we pay? Why should we pay a penny piece into an organisation whose accounts have not been signed off by the auditors for the last 11 years in a row? We are completely alone within the European Union, which is why it's been said before. Hang on a second, everybody else gets an extra minute. Mr. President, I'm asking for 10 seconds. Thank you. Which is why, Prime Minister, I urge you, it's often been said that you wanted to be the permanent President of Europe. Please stay on for a further 6 months, 6 more months of the British presidency, and they'll kick us out. Thank you.
I mean, UKIP, I mean, it's just a sort of, you know, bunch of, they're just trying to make a bit of mischief. I mean, as far as I can see,
UKIP is a bunch of what?
Well, fruitcakes and loonies and closet racists, mostly.
We not only saved the world, saved the banks and saved the banks and led the way.
You've told us that somehow you're the economic guru. You're the man that can save the world. Well, I remember very well your first big act as Chancellor, when you sold 400 metric tons of gold on the world's exchanges at $275 an ounce. At today's valuation, that would be $10 billion higher. But it isn't just the fact you got it wrong, because we can all get it wrong. It was the fact that you announced in advance how much you were going to sell and on what day you were going to sell it. It was an error so basic that the average A-level economics student, even in these educationally devalued times, wouldn't have done.
The other parties are proven chances. They can't be trusted with your money.
You can use June the 4th, this Thursday, the European elections, to demand a referendum from Gordon Brown. The best way to get that referendum is to vote Conservative. Don't you think all of us should have a say in the referendum that we were promised?
You've done pretty well in these elections. You must be pretty pleased. Yes, I think for a party like UKIP to come second nationally and to beat the governing Labour Party and the Lib Dems again, as we did 5 years ago, is a very pleasing result, especially as there was a whole mass of EU critical parties standing.
You can't say anything about the immigrants because you're saying that but all these Eastern Europeans what are coming in, where are they flocking from?
Just a sort of bigoted woman said she used to be Labour.
That is what you said. She's not allowed to express her view to you?
Of course she's allowed to express her view, and I was saying that. The problem was that I was dealing with a question that she raised about immigration, and I wasn't given a chance to answer it. It was a question about immigration that really, I think, was annoying.
It was one of the most shocking images of the election, the tangled wreckage of a light aircraft, with UKIP's Nigel Farage trapped inside. He escaped in one piece, but with broken ribs, a punctured lung, and with fractures to his sternum and spine.
But the worst of it was surviving the impact and being trapped in that wreckage. And I was suspended upside down in the wreckage, and then that horrible smell of petrol everywhere, you know, petrol in the hair and in the clothes, and then thinking, God, you know, we've survived this crash and now we're going to burn to death. And that was absolutely terrifying.
It wasn't a great moment for UKIP. I mean, compare it to the European elections where you get 16% and a lamentable 3%.
3% of the national vote and about 3.8% of the seats in which we stood. The first past the post system is a nightmare for UKIP. There's no doubt about that. I will go on absolutely determined to do my job, and I'll go on looking at a coalition government in Britain and realising that for Eurosceptics in this country, UKIP is now the only party they can possibly support.
De créer cet embryon de world governance.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy is not popular with you lot. And what mechanism do the peoples of Europe have to remove you? Who the hell do you think you people are? You are very, very dangerous people indeed. Your obsession with creating this Euro state means that you're happy to destroy democracy. You appear to be happy for millions and millions of people to be unemployed and to be poor. Untold millions must suffer so that your Euro dream can continue.
Views expressed by Herr Schulz meet the case. He is an undemocratic fascist.
Mr. Bloom did not apologise then, and I call on him now to do so. And if he does not do so, he must leave the chamber.
Yet again, there is one rule for Herr Schulz and one rule for everybody else. This is a disgrace. I have been re-elected to vote in this chamber by the people of Yorkshire, your own constituency I might add, with a democratic mandate which you do not enjoy, Mr. President, yourself, because you switched parties and they voted for the Conservatives. I have no intention of apologising. I have no intention of leaving this chamber. You must have me escorted out, sir.
If the rules are that something is deemed to be an insult, a member is asked to leave, that's fair enough. But the anger, and I share that anger, is these rules are not applied evenly. Mr. Schulz regularly calls other people fascists, and when he's called one, the member in question is asked to leave. That isn't right, that isn't fair.
Please allow me to speak frankly as one Lancastrian to another, because this just isn't going very well, is it? It really isn't. It was said that your appointment made by the Commission would stop the traffic in Tokyo and Washington. But you haven't even been able to appoint the ambassador to Washington because old Barroso did you up like a kipper. But Baroness Ashton, you're the highest paid female politician in the world. You're paid more than Frau Merkel, you're paid more than Hillary Clinton. It's a 24-hour job. Now to top it all off, yesterday it was reported, let me finish please, yesterday it was reported that you're being provided with a Learjet. To get 300,000 miles per year you're expected to do. That would get you to the moon, and most people now would like you to stay there.
There is a new democratic revolution sweeping Northern Europe. It's not anti-European. It wants a Europe of trade. It wants a Europe of cooperation. It wants a Europe where we can do student exchanges, where we can work in each other's capital cities. It wants those things, but it does not want this European Union model. Frankly, you are all now yesterday's men.
A British citizen can now be sent off to any corner of the European Union on the strength of a piece of paper. Your system of EU criminal law will do for our liberties what the European single currency has done for your economies.
What's interesting about UKIP this year is they are actually fielding something like 14% more candidates this time than they did last time. But interestingly, the British National Party are fielding exactly 14% less candidates this time than they did last time. So, you know, whether there is a kind of a link about an overlap between the two parties, I'm not sure.
She's wrong on the arithmetic because she wasn't comparing like with like, and she's wrong on the politics because we have nothing to do with the BNP, and she damn well knows that. We're furious.
Frankly, I'm not happy with the status quo, so I don't want to have to say yes to the status quo, but I also don't think it would be right to leave right now, because we would be basically coming out of the single market, which our businesses badly need to keep those markets open.
If you want that kind of yes or no, vote UKIP.
Well, I think that UKIP is a complete waste of time, obviously.
Mr Cameron, when you come back from this Brussels summit, why don't you accept my challenge and let's have a proper, full debate in Britain on whether it's worth staying a member of this union or not. What our taxpayers are saying is enough is enough. No longer do we wish to pay money to Hungarian companies involved in projects that improve the lifestyle and living standards of dogs. And our patience has completely snapped at such cultural absurdities as the €400,000 given to the Flying Gorillas dance troupe, who, using their own language of rhythm, music and gibberish, well, they'd fit in well here, wouldn't they, give performances such as the brilliant Smelly Foot Dance with an acoustic score that includes some spectacular belching. No, I'm not making it up.
The fact of the matter is that an open door immigration policy doesn't work. And that isn't something against anybody that's coming into the country. It doesn't matter who you are. It puts strains on the welfare facilities as well. This gentleman has had his welfare payments removed. Now, if you come over into this country, you can go straight onto the welfare state without actually having to prove anything. Next year we'll have hundreds of thousands of Bulgarians and Romanians coming into this country. That puts pressure on the employment. So I think we've got to address the problem. Never mind who did what and why they've done it. It's here, it's now, let's sort it out.
The couple are claiming that their 3 foster children were taken from them because of their membership of the UK Independence Party.
They've respected the culture from which they came, but they've also been doing everything they can to teach them English so that they can integrate and do well at school. Surely we need more people out there fostering kids like this, and I think the way this Labour-controlled council behave is an absolute outrage.
The Nobel Peace Prize is awarded this lunchtime. It's awarded to the European Union, a decision not without some controversy.
The last thing we saw with the EU was Angela Merkel going to Athens, people dressed up in Nazi uniforms, and a general feeling of mutual distrust, hatred and dislike that has grown up between Germany and Greece, and so I find it absolutely baffling.
Given how well they're doing at the moment in the polls, do you regret using fruitcake and closet racist as terms for UKIP?
Look, when you're Prime Minister, you have to get used to the fact that in the middle of a parliament, you're going to have people going off in all sorts of different directions. You've just got to focus on the job in hand, and people will judge us in 2015.
But they're not fruitcakes, are they?
Well, there are some pretty odd. We won't go into
okay, all right.
Pretty odd people.
David Cameron says there are some pretty odd people in UKIP. What do you say to that charge?
Well, compared to him and Miliband and Clegg, I mean, hands up, I'm odd. Very odd. Do you realise I actually had a job once? No, honestly. Really. I went out and earned a living. And then for 9 years, I ran my own company. And I employed people. I've lived and breathed and worked in the real world. Unlike those 3, who were a bunch of college kids, who went straight from Oxbridge into research offices and, frankly, have not really done a day's work in their lives.
The facilities are at breaking point because of these people coming into the country, and nothing is being done, and there are hardly any locals there anymore because they're all moving away. You go down to Boston High Street and it's just like you're in a foreign country. It's got to stop.
There's a rather kind of charming coda to this report which said actually the maternity unit at the Pilgrim Hospital had probably been kept open because of the increase in population.
The chief police officer of Cambridgeshire, your home county, 3 years ago, she said that in fact what was happening was that an intolerable strain was being put on policing hospitals and schools in Cambridgeshire, and that's the common thing that people are finding. No, really? God, how about that? Well, that's new, isn't it? If UKIP hadn't been there, this speech simply wouldn't have happened. Today, in a way, is our proudest achievement to date, but the real work now begins.